Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Norsca in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Out of the races affected by the Tides of Torment DLC, Norsca is, on paper at least, the best one to come out of it. They got a bunch of really good stuff, but it's still not on the level that it should have been as a race. Certainly not for a DLC that took over a year. And that's, by the way, the big problem in Creative Assembly. They spend a very long time to do very simple things that modders can and have done in far shorter periods of time. And the reason for that is, well, it's complicated, and I'll dive in deeper on it. But let me talk a bit about the Norsca issues. And I am using Trog as an example because I think Trog is really good. Well, first off, Norsca does thrive on raiding, pillaging, and sacking, but the problem that does exist is the fact that when we're talking about raiding, pillaging, and sacking, and fighting battles and confederation, it doesn't quite end up working in the way that it should. I might have to lower the difficulty. For instance, you know, I go to this particular settlement, I can either raise an altar, I can occupy, or I can pillage and raise it. Let's say we pillage and raise it. That's the core gameplay style. The fact that there is such a bug where even though I clicked a button and it didn't do it, then yes, that is a problem. But then having to manage this pillage and raising army is also not ideal. The other thing is the imbalance between legendary lords, because you end up with Trog, who's like the god king of the universe in Total War Warhammer 3 due to things like Monstrous Horde, whereas Wulfric and Sail don't end up working quite as well. With Trog especially, it's ridiculous because you end up having certain structures that other people don't have that give them a significant advantage. Specifically, you have the Troll Grotto that gives you income, Troll Dominion, and Growth, and Trollkind. Good structure, but between altars that you have to build, the limitations on structures, the complication of broken systems that are complicated for the sake of being complicated, it doesn't end up being very good. So that's one issue. And also the fact that if you use Empire of Trolls at the highest level, every single army, even if it just literally is a one-man army of a lord that, you know, you just recruited, the fact that they can get up to a full stack of monstrous units is also ridiculous. There's a lot of issues with regards to Norsca, but I would say one of the bigger issues that exists with regards to them is actually heroes. So you can get a lot of heroes at tier 3, so you can get Skin Wolves, but the problem is you get them at tier 3, but you also increase capacity at tier 3. So Skin Wolves, the only good part is the Fimir Noble, because you can recruit them at tier 2, they increase capacity at tier 3. That's good. The Shadow Sorcerer, the Bale Fiend, who also gives you casualty replenishment. Again, the tier at which you recruit a hero should not be the tier that you increase hero capacity. That is a point that I would make across the board in the game. This is one of the reasons the Empire and Dwarves are such good races and why Creative Assembly has never matched that. Now let's talk about Creative Assembly here for a second, because there's a couple of systemic issues with the company. First off, you have developers that don't play their game, or the people who are experienced in playing the game have been moved on to different projects. So you end up having a constant inflow of new developers that simply do not have the understanding required to properly fix the game. One, they don't play it. Two, they listen to whatever is quote-unquote popular on Reddit. And 3, even the developers that do know what they're doing either aren't working on Warhammer 3 or they're dealing with tech debt, as it's been called, or just legacy code. Or 4, they get told by the community management team to not do it. Now, I want to emphasize something very clearly. There is a sentiment, one that Legend of Total War spread, and he spread it because he was told this by developers he talked to. He made it clear he would talk to developers. But the thing about developers, there's a certain level of arrogance from people who did IT, who think that just because they got the diploma, they mean they're always right. That's the arrogance of what you could call the credentials crowd, if you will, or however well you want to call it, the Ivy League bullshit stuff. But the thing is, video game developers aren't Ivy League top tier, S tier developers. They're actually B and C tier. If they were S tier, they would be hired by big AI companies and earning hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. They are not. And that's, by the way, an inherent issue of video game development, that the people working in video game development with the credentials were the kind of people that skipped classes, did crunch in order to get through their semesters, if you will, and were not necessarily the very best students. They're the leftovers. And yes, I did just insult a lot of video game developers with that particular statement. Welcome to fucking reality. But the best developers, believe it or not, are those that never actually went to IT, never studied IT. That's why a lot of old school video games end up feeling so good, is because the people making them were actually really competent people. Not competent in the way of, oh, I finished a school with a barely passing degree, that I know what I'm doing, but competent in the sense I built something from scratch, so I know all the pitfalls that come with that. It's, in essence, the difference between people who have a lived life experience versus people who got cozy and comfortable and were lazy in school and somehow think that because they have a diploma, they know what they're doing. That's the developer part. The community management part is that they know this, because they do know this. What, you think the people in community management, PR, marketing, and management don't know exactly the kind of people that work under them? They know perfectly well the kind of people. But management, people love to blame management. But if you tell me with a straight face that management and creative assembly is deciding something like Kislev or Azazel, I don't believe you for a second. They allocate resources, they appoint certain people, but they don't know video game development. So it is a problem of communication internally. The issue with Creative Assembly is that their solution to these communication issues was to give the community management team a lot of power, not the content creator team. Legend blamed the content creator team for the issues, specifically Josh. Yes, that's the name he used. That's the one I'm going to use because it's public information. Josh and the content creator team are never the problem. They're the ones holding the damn thing together. And this is the mistake Legend made, because Legend was not perfect. He lashed out against one of the very few good people within Creative Assembly that's trying to keep things together. And so what happens with the community management team, video gaming companies have gotten used to the idea of brigading content creators in order to quote-unquote protect the brand. Which, by the way, is an illegal effort, but the reason they get away with it is because they think content creators like myself or Legend lack the legal resources in order to take them to court. Yeah, that's not quite true, and that's the reason when Sega tried to issue a copyright strike on Volant, who is definitely not the kind of person with millions in the bank to sue them, but that's the reason why YouTube slapped down Sega over that copyright strike. It's a complicated history. I know not everyone is going to follow this, but this particular video, this point, is not necessarily for public consumption, even if it's said in public. It's just saying certain things that certain people will hear. So the way Creative Assembly ends up working as a company is precisely like Daniel. Chaotic, messy, complex, lack of good structure, good mechanics, good systems. If you want to know how Creative Assembly is as a company, it is precisely like the Demon Prince. At his worst. Not even the good parts, because there are some good parts. There's occasional flashes of greatness. But that entire event in December where they revealed 40k Total War and Medieval 3 shortly before that, and also did all those developer interviews, that was a bloody mess. Because on one hand, you had people dressed in suits, like you're going to launch 40k Total War, the biggest video game project in your company's history. So you have people wearing suits and dresses, especially the Bulgaria team. And then you have developers with dirty sneakers. And I'm like, guys, you don't need to all wear a suit, but a certain dress code is required for such events. That's the issue of Creative Assembly. You want to know where Creative Assembly is broken? It's having some of their developers talking about projects and looking like they just walked out of a fucking trash can at an event Creative Assembly as a company spent probably over $100 million between the Game Awards show and all that. Now, the issue for the community management team is that they believe themselves they are deities. They are not. They're janitors. And the fact is, they forgot that they're janitors. They're the ones that clean up the mess left by others. But it's not their job to be judge, jury, and executioner. But they have embraced that against developers and against content creators. In this day and age, however, and I speak here as a European Union citizen, we have things to call like the GDPR and the DSA. And I don't even need to file a legal formal complaint against Creative Assembly for the fact that they tried to brigade my channel, which, by the way, they did, and YouTube agreed. I just need to contact YouTube. I did that about 2 months ago. Now, I say this because I went through a lot of personal shit. I mentioned that in my post, but I am also mentioning this specifically only with regards to Total War Warhammer 3, because some people did not learn the lessons. So I'm going to say this very clearly. That company structure needs to be improved, and Creative Assembly needs, and video gaming companies in general need to stop targeting the worst excesses of children who want to buy loot boxes or DLC or blood DLC, or we start seeing real heavy legislation coming in from both the United States and the European Union. And for those people who want to touch up the angle, don't talk politics, boys and girls, I talk about whatever the fuck I want, whenever I want. You are not in control of this channel. And the only people who have a willingness or ability to stop me is YouTube themselves. And YouTube knows exactly why they've kept my channel around for 16 years. Because content creators that speak truth and don't go over the line, which by the way is what Legend did or Volan did, and even Legend is someone YouTube would very much prefer if he had stayed. But content creators that speak clean but hard truths without going over the line, and believe it or not, Legend never did, Volan did, and they still protected Volan because of legal liability. There's a lot of things to unpack on this, but my overall point is Creative Assembly is Daniel in the worst form that he currently is. And here's the worst part. Creative Assembly probably knows this themselves. They think that they can fix these issues with, oh, we'll just fix it in the next game. We've been hearing that since Rome 2 came out, and it hasn't happened so far. We have band-aids and patches and hotfixes and DLCs that take a year to release that should take a month to do. Yes, a month. We have overexpensive or too expensive DLC because nickel and diming people during a time of economic hardship is what these companies do. That's what the management, by the way, is responsible for, the pricing. Of course, you do have shareholders. Again, it's an entire broken and rotten structure that if it's not fixed, then it doesn't matter what me or you or anyone who's either a fan or hates Creative Assembly does, it will collapse on its own. A small reminder to people before I end this video. Concord did not happen in a vacuum. It happened exactly for these reasons. Hyenas wasn't one of the biggest video game disaster of all times in a vacuum. It happened within a broken company structure that has improved a bit, yes, but only by a smidge bit. I don't think Creative Assembly is going to do another $100 million fail unless they fail in Warhammer 40k and they don't fix Warhammer 3. And based on what I've seen, I think my personal projection is they're going to fuck both of those up. That's where I stand. Costin signing out.